I went back to Girish. I told him, see, Bharat is telling me come back after 2 or 3 years, but I will probably reach out to you again in 2 or 3 months. Aditya Girish laughed and he said, you don't have to do all that. And he gave me an offer letter in my hand and left. I left the office with an offer letter for a role that I didn't even know I was being interviewed for. So the first thing I asked him, like after I got the offer letter, was, நீங்க இன்டர்வியூவே பண்ணலையே, எப்படி நீங்க வந்து எனக்கு இது வேலை கொடுக்குறீங்க அப்படின்னு. He said, 2 நாள் வந்து பேசிட்டு இருக்கு, இதெல்லாம் என்ன நினைச்சு அப்படின்னு கேட்டாரு. Then he told me that he had done research on me. So he had basically spoken to all the people that I knew. And he said, you write well. I know your reputation in college has reached my ears. And with that trust, I'm hiring you. அப்படிதான் என்கிட்ட சொன்னாரு.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Takeaway Club, where I talk to interesting people across different walks of life to get to know their stories and, more importantly, how they got to where they are. A warm welcome to the listeners of the Takeaway Club. In today's episode, I speak with Vignesh Vijayakumar, more popularly known as Body in the Freshworks and Sastra circle. The most accurate way to describe Body would be as an enigma. He probably has at least 1,000 friends, making a complete mockery of the Dunbar number, hence the title 6 Degrees of Body. Body and I have a lot in common. We are both from Sastra, love Freshworks, journalism, pro wrestling, pop culture references, among many other things that probably only the two of us would find funny or engaging. In this episode, we both turn to midnight RJs in a lot of ways. Completely unwinding, having a freewheeling Joe Rogan-esque conversation on all the topics I just mentioned. If you're just starting out your career or still in college or find yourself nostalgic about life in the 90s, I think you'll definitely cherish this conversation. Hey Body, one of the most popular figures in Freshworks after Girish himself.
I become one with whatever organization I'm part of. So I'm like a billboard. I'm like the brand mascot, brand ambassador, call me whatever. So more than being popular or famous, I think I relate with everyone. So that's my superpower is I can become friends with anyone very fast. So I use that to my advantage.
Making friends with anyone is like a very general theme of what you have done pretty much all your life. And for people who don't know Body or Vignesh, so I think some 10 minutes into the conversation, that's the first time I'm calling you by your actual name. So just give us the story of who's Body and how did he came to be known as Body, and we'll take things from there.
I was born and given the name Vignesh a long time ago, but nobody ever really called me that at home during school. My nickname was Vikku growing up. So Vikku or Vivi. Some teachers, some people in school still call me Vivi. But at home, I'm called Vikku. And throughout my school days, my name was always Vikku. But the funny thing is, Vignesh is actually a very quite common name. So wherever I was, right? So in school, I've been in like 5 different sections. Every section I've been part of, my name was never unique. There will always be more than one, more than two, and sometimes like there will be 4 people with the same name, right? So there are common names like Arvind, Karthik, Vignesh. These are all like you will always have doubles, triples, or even quadruples of them wherever you go. So I was one among those. So it always felt like I was one cog in the wheel of sorts. Right? So towards the end of school and before college, that was like the time where I really wanted my individuality in a way. Right? So I became this whole. I had this very rebellious attitude of making my mark, and like I grew up watching wrestling back then. So the first big WrestleMania feud that I watched growing up was Jericho versus Michaels. So Jericho talks about how he grew up idolizing Shawn Michaels. He wanted to be like just like him and all that, and then later he turns heel saying that I don't want to be the next Shawn Michaels. I want to be the first Chris Jericho, right? So something in that I think made a mark in me where that sense of individuality was always there, right? So and honestly, I did not do it by myself, right? So I did not give myself the name that I got. Like people around me gave that name, and I just made it famous, or I made it my identity, right? So I then went to college. So So one more thing you need to know about me is I grew up as a sick child. So I always fall sick. So I had like immunity problems because of the bacteria in my throat and all that. So for the first, say, like primary school, right? So classes 1 to 5, I've barely been to school. Like my attendance will be like 20-30%. I would have missed like complete terms of exams, not like one exam, two exam. The quarterly exams, I wouldn't have gone. So uh, when I went to college, I used to look really like malnourished, and I was skin and bones basically. Like ஒரு skeleton இது மேல வந்து skin wrap பண்ணிருந்தா அப்படி இருக்கும். அப்படிதான் இருந்தேன். So you can definitely relate. So and I used to generally be very what sensitive to cold. Like I can withstand any heat, but எனக்கு குளிர் வந்து சென்னை சம்மர்ல நான் வந்து போத்தேன்னு தூங்குவேன். சரியா? So Chennai summer is cold for me. So for me, when I went to college, I used to like have a bedspread that was like hospital green in color, and daily when I used to sleep, I used to cover my entire face because it was very cold for me. Like Tanjavur late night was cold winds for me. So அங்க படுத்துட்டு இருக்கச்ச ஹாஸ்டல்ல it looked like there's a dead body lying there, and I would never move much, right? So I used to just stay still like this. So that's how I got the name body. Like body is short for dead body, and it just carried over uh, throughout the rest of my life.
That's pretty amazing, and so many aspects of it, right? And what I love the most is when I asked about your childhood, you basically explained you as a WWE fan. I love how you synonymize wrestling with your childhood, right? So that's I can totally like get this. And for a lot of people who are listening to it, I'm not sure like how much they would relate with it, right? But everything that you say, like, it's not just names, right? It's like so much rich history. Like I actually remember standing in some random like corners in the house, like taking tumblers, remotes and all, and cutting promos. I always used to cut promos against Jericho because Punk and Jericho had this intense rivalry all the time. I love it. And the body name is that's also super fascinating story, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm being way too nice here. Not exactly fascinating, but I what I like about it is like people don't generally like want to get associated with things like this. Fast forward it to about like 18 years of your life now. This is where like try to pull back the envy side of me and try to listen to that many of the amazing experiences that you have had with G. I know the first one is the most memorable one as well. So what is that like? So when, if I'm not mistaken, the timeline is you were in your final year of college when Freshworks team, and of course it was a very small team back then, Girish had come to Sastra.
No, so technically Girish did not come to Shastra. He came to Trichy Sangam Hotel. I was in final year. One of my friends, so in first year he was my next door hostel roommate. His name is Ramesh. He was interviewed and hired by Girish way back in 2012, right? So in 2012, like the year that we were graduating, we studied engineering 2008 to 12. In 2012, I think somewhere between February or March, so the thing is, he got hired because a junior of ours called Shankar. So Shankar Ganesh is pretty famous himself, so you should probably know him on Twitter, all of that, right?
Oh, Shankar's from Sastra.
You didn't know that.
It's not on his Twitter bio, boss.
I don't think he likes being associated with the college, so he downplays it.
Two sides.
Yeah. So Shankar tweeted. So I think this thing happened in 2011-12. The whole ripoff or not, Zendesk, Indian cowboys, that whole fiasco, right? So I think that was the inflection point or the tipping point for Freshdesk as a brand name to be at least known in college circles or Indian startup crowd. So Shankar Ganesh was a person who practically lived on the internet. So he tweeted, or he saw a tweet by Girish that was looking for people, right? So he was looking for Indian cowboys to hire. So he shared that tweet, or he replied marking Ramesh in that tweet, because he was still in third year. Ramesh was in fourth year, so he was likely to graduate first, right? So Ramesh went to Chennai, got interviewed, got hired. Girish sent him back to college with the mission to hire more people. So he basically, Ramesh literally went door to door asking people if they are interested in sitting for placements with this company called Freshworks, or Fresh Desk back then, which was conducting their placement drive somewhere in Trichy, right? So I actually gave it a good thought, because it was exciting to be part of a company that was founded by Shastra. Like, I'm very very what do you say, attached to the places that I belong. So for me, my school, my college, my workplace are all like an extension of who I am. So working for a startup whose CEO was from Shastra was definitely something that I had seriously considered.
Yeah, I think I remember Sportskida was the same for me. For
yes.
the
same. Sportskida was the actually, like, between Freshdesk and Sportskida ranked higher, because Sportskida was an Indian startup with a Shastra founder, which covered WWE as journalism. Okay, so in all other newspapers, in all other publications, WWE would not be featured anywhere, right? But they actually took it seriously, and they wrote, like, there used to be articles, lengthy articles. So that's why I really wanted to at least give it a shot with Sportskida. And when Freshers came along, I evaluated both, right? So this was final year, looking at jobs and all. But I don't know whether it was fortunate or unfortunate. I got admit for a college, right? So I was also interested in doing design. I really wanted to become a video designer. Like, I grew up watching a lot of animation, right? So Disney movies was what I grew up on. I watched a lot of anime, like old school anime, pre Animax, pre the advent of anime in India. So that combined with watching WWE promo videos, right? So honestly, there is still like two dream jobs for me, right? Like, in the world of corporate, if not for Freshworks today, I would want to be part of Disney, Walt Disney as a company. I would want to be part of WWE as a company, not as a competitor, but in their video team, right? So honestly, the video editing team of WWE that makes these promo videos for feuds are out of this world. Like I can tell you, like, top 5 videos that I know by heart. Like, I know every single thing that happens there, that I have watched. Like, those videos will probably have like 1 million view count and all that, right? On average, there was a period in time where I used to watch that every day. Every day I used to watch it 100
Yeah, what's your
for a period of 2
one,
years.
give me one from every 5 years, like your favorite promo. Let's maybe start from
I'll give you my top 5.
The
one for every 5 years like videos
I'm just greedy. I want, unless like I make it like timeline centric, I don't think you'll have anything from the last 5 years, honestly. So that was the only rationale.
So for me,
yeah.
So the oldest or the first promo that I really loved watching was, like, when I just started watching WWE. There was a rematch of Rock Hogan. So Rock Hogan happened in WrestleMania 18. No Way Out 2003 had Rock Hogan 2. So that is a promo that I really like. So basically, Rock turns heel. He's the whole Hollywood Rock persona and all of that. So that was like the first glimpse of Rock as a Hollywood bad guy. Then after that, 2004, 5, I really liked. Okay, like, before I watched wrestling, right? So when I go back, after I started watching wrestling, I started watching things in reverse also, because I used to want to watch all of those, right? So I really liked the whole Shawn Michaels comeback, like Shawn Michaels Triple H 2002, the whole SummerSlam rivalry. Then WWF versus WCW, the whole Survivor Series, the World Wrestling Federation versus Alliance 5-on-5 winner take all match. So those are like the 3 older videos that I really liked. After I started watching, there is a Royal Rumble 2004 la Shawn Michaels and Triple H fought in a last man standing match. So that is really one of my favorite videos as well. But the peak videos now 2010s. So everything post 2010 and before 2020, I think that tons of videos, like 2010 la vandu or bragging rights video, John Cena, Randy Orton.
Yeah, I mean, around the time this John Laurinaitis guy was.
Yes. So on I Quit la mudichtu. So they had a series of matches. They had multiple matches. This was the last Iron Man match, which if Cena loses, he will quit.
Ah,
He will quit WWE. That is the stipulation. Then I'm coming to the good ones. So 2010, அதுக்கப்புறம் 2014, Bray Wyatt, John Cena, Eminem legacy song. Like the first John Cena Bray Wyatt match had a promo with Eminem's release called Legacy. That was really nice. My top 3 videos will always be Rock CM Punk for the WWE title. The song is Champion. Undertaker Shawn Michaels 2, which is Streak versus Career. It's a song called Running Up That Hill. And the number one, which I don't think it'll take me another 10 years of WWE footage to beat or surpass that level of emotion. Okay, Daniel Bryan Monster. That Monster song is still one of the top favorite songs for me in my life. Like, it's a motivational song.
So I'm so glad. Like, I was really hoping like Daniel Bryan was. Now when it was not there, number 3, number 2, maybe he's not gonna tell. I'm so glad like that was your favorite. Bodies, weird, sometimes slightly creepy ability to remember the most, trivial details that a lot of people gloss over, right? So I happened to like read up on a few of the posts, all of the posts that you wrote, and the kind of detailing, and you go back to like write down the dates. This is the person. There is at least like I would have learned about 100 new people just in the last 2 hours because you mentioned them in your blog post, right? And I think that's also one of the most asked questions when you put out what Krishna should be asking me on the podcast. What's up with your memory, and do you like cultivate it, or do you note down stuff, or it's just like one of those micros things?
Okay, there is a story of how when I realized I had very good memory also. I used to dread going to hospitals because I was in a bio. Like, at least till I was around 10 years old, I was very scared of getting injections and all that. But I literally grew. I spent 40 or 50% of my life in hospital beds or at home having bed rest. I had no choice. So என் வீட்டில் வந்து எனக்கு மெடிசன் சாப்பிடணும் இல்லைன்னா ஊசி போடணும் அப்படின்னா வந்து their way of bribery is they will get me a toy. So அப்போ வந்து எனக்கு like I grew up watching, or the TV show came much later. I grew up playing with these toys called GI Joes. You would have probably seen the GI Joe movie with Rock in it. நான் சொல்றது வந்து GI Joe ஒரு கார்ட்டூன் வந்தது. அந்த கார்ட்டூனுக்கு before the cartoon, so they had a toy line. Outside India, whatever happens, back in early 90s, it used to take at least 4 or 5 years lag. So இங்க வந்து whatever you see as 1985, right? So 1985 figures இந்தியால 1991, 92 தான் வந்திருக்கும். நான் 91 தான் பிறந்தது. நான் இந்த டாய்ஸ்ல தான் நான் பார்த்து விளையாடி இருக்கேன். Obviously nobody will want to wish that they fall sick, but I knew if I fall sick I will get a toy. So now I will remember all these by name so that if and when I fall sick I know what toy to get next. So I could recite these like with my eyes closed. I used to fall sick so often. This was always in front of my eyes. So that's how I think my initial memory was like that. And now I think my brain works like a database, sharded database. எனக்கு வந்து ஒரு Google மாதிரி word association தான். So I tend to auto complete sentences in my head. I tend to relate and link things very fast. So எனக்கு வந்து ஒரு algorithmic way of thinking.
Do you know who you sound like right now? Money Heist Professor.
நான் பார்த்தது இல்ல.
Oh.
So probably I will take your word for it. I have not seen it.
Yes. Well, how come? Sounds like something you would enjoy.
I know, but never got into it.
Basically, Professor, he spends a lot of his childhood in hospital beds, and that's where he just like he has that memory planning and the whole thing going on. We took a big detour. We'll go back to that Sastra story, but that was definitely interesting.
My year, Kurukshastra, the event in college that I was waiting for 4 years of my life happened. That event finished. That Monday, like Sunday, the event got over. Monday, I traveled because Monday night I had a train to catch to go to Bangalore because the college I applied to was in Bangalore, NICC. Tuesday, I had an interview. Tuesday, I had my portfolio submission, all of that. So basically, the portfolio that I prepared for my PG college was all the design work I did for Carpe and KS in my final year. I spoke to my professor, the people who interviewed me. I spoke to them about my passion of watching cartoons growing up, all of that. Showed them all the design work that I did. By Wednesday, I got the admit. Freshers interview happened that weekend, that Saturday. So basically, if I had not gotten the admit, 3 days later, I would have gone and interviewed for freshers for sure. Because I got the admit, I didn't want to. I wanted to study. Like, I know for a fact that changing that student to working mode is very hard. Like going from student to working and then from working to student is extremely hard. So if I'm a student, let me finish being a student once and for all. So on the 2 years, I was always in touch with all my friends in freshers. So after I joined my college also, I was in constant touch. I was following up what they were doing, all of that. I was pretty informed of what was going on at least. So while all my classmates, my friends, everyone joined Fresh Desk right out of college in 2012, I took 2 years late to come. So to 2014, I joined.
If I'm not mistaken again, though, so it's not a very straightforward story as well. So you didn't have like a typical application process, quite a 7 HR rounds, like how Freshworks is getting infamous for these days.
We will. I will take that feedback and try to reduce the number of rounds. But yeah, 2014. Fresh Desk did not really have a formal way of interviewing. Honestly, the jobs themselves were not straightforward, right? So we were still a very small company. We looked for, or we hired people for who they were rather than the role that we wanted to hire them for, right? So when I reached out to my friends, they said, don't look at the careers page and all that. Right now, like till 2016, I think till 2016, Girish interviewed every single person, right? So the first roughly 500 odd people in the company have been interviewed by Girish. So he made it a point to interview everyone. He made a point to meet everyone. So my friends who were in Freshworks at that time told me, don't look at a careers page and apply and all that. Send me your resume. We will send it to Girish internally. We'll probably set up some time with him. It will be like a informal meeting. You come here and then he will talk to you and he will decide. That's what they told me. He was still taking hiring decisions and he was trying to figure out roles for people rather than hire them for roles that needed to be hired. So when I came, I was told it was an informal conversation. I asked them, like, should I bring anything apart from my resume? I got this conversation with Girish set up for April 17th. I went and met him. I told him all this. I told him, see, this is the current situation I'm in. I pitched myself as a video designer, right? So back in that time, the Fresh Desk homepage had an animation playing in the background, right? So it will be a spaceship மாதிரி இப்படி போயிட்டே இருக்கும் பேக்ல அண்ட் அது அந்த வீடியோ சரியா லூப் ஆகாது. ஸோ ஒரு ஸ்லைட்டா ஜர்க் வரும். ஸோ இது வரைக்கும் போகும். திடீர்னு அது ஆஃப் கோர்ஸா போய் the video will loop. So I pitched myself saying my forte is in making videos, right? I can make a lot of videos for you. I also told him how I learned Photoshop, or basically the design software that I learned was all looking at YouTube videos and tutorials. So as a product company, we are making or building products. The best way to teach people how to use your products is through video tutorials. And at that time, Fresh Desk had like 2 videos, like Fresh Desk Overview Part 1, Fresh Desk Overview Part 2, ரெண்டு வீடியோ தான் இருந்தது. அதெல்லாம் பார்த்துட்டு நான் இது நல்லா பண்ணலாம், இதை பிரிச்சு யூ கேன் பிரேக் இட் டவுன் இன்டு சோ மெனி மாடியூல்ஸ், இதெல்லாம் பண்ணலாம், ஒரு எலாபரேட்டா ஒரு பிளான் எல்லாம் பிரசன்ட் பண்ணி இதெல்லாம் பண்ணலாம் அப்படின்னு சொல்லி எல்லாம் கேட்டுட்டு நீ இது டிசைன் டீம்னா நீ டிசைன் ஹெட் கிட்ட தான் பேசணும், நீ அவர்கிட்ட போய் பேசிட்டு வா. He will probably ask you to bring your resume portfolio. You go meet him. So Girish pointed me to a person called Bharat, who was the head of design, who is still the head of design. So he asked me to come back the next day because I didn't bring anything. I brought a paper resume. He said, you bring your laptop, I want to see your work, you show me whatever you design. அடுத்த நாள் எல்லாத்தையும் கொண்டு வந்து I took him through. It was a solid 1 hour, 1.5 hours presentation that I took him through how I started designing to all the t-shirts, all the collateral, நம்ம KS flex print எடுத்ததெல்லாம் நான் காமிச்சு till the internship work that I was doing. 1.5 hours கழிச்சு இதெல்லாம் கேட்டுட்டு he said very good, like for a fresher you do a really good job, but right now I'm not looking for freshers, so why don't you come back after few years. This was what the design head told me. I said அங்கேயே எனக்கு வந்து தெரிஞ்சு போயிட்டு எனக்கு இங்க வந்து ரோல் கிடையாது, பெங்களூர் தான் போகணும். நான் வந்து அப்போ கூட நான் வந்து ஒரு I was not hopeful, but I still said, see, anything can happen, right? So I still had a 3-month internship. So my internship started in April. It was scheduled to end only in June. So I went back to Girish. I told him, see, Bharat is telling me come back after 2 or 3 years, but I will probably reach out to you again in 2 or 3 months because my internship there gets over. If I still have a chance, and if probably you have people that you want to hire freshers for, I will give my shot then. I will try to at least, re-interview once and come better prepared for probably my internship will help me get my skills better. Aditya Girish laughed and he said, you don't have to do all that. And he gave me an offer letter in my hand and left. I left the office with an offer letter for a role that I didn't even know I was being interviewed for. The previous day, the conversation was mostly on, told me like, why don't you consider marketing as a role? Because all the friends that I had who were hired in Freshworks, right? Your Ramesh, Shankar, all of them were part of the marketing team. So he said, நீ வந்து marketing try பண்ணக்கூடாது அப்படிதான் எனக்கு வந்து he was nudging me towards that role. He didn't tell me that I was being interviewed for it and all of that. So the first thing I asked him, like after I got the offer letter, was நீங்க இன்டர்வியூவே பண்ணலையே எப்படி நீங்க வந்து எனக்கு இப்படி வேலை கொடுக்குறீங்க அப்படின்னு. He said, உனக்கு இன்டர்வியூ 2 நாள் வந்து பேசிட்டு இருக்கு, இதெல்லாம் என்ன நினைச்சு அப்படின்னு கேட்டாரு. Then he told me that he had done research on me. So he had basically spoken to all the people that I knew. He had read a lot of, like I used to have a lot of blogs back then. Facebook notes ஓட பவர் யூசர். ஃபேஸ்புக்ல நோட்ஸ்னு ஒரு ஃபீச்சர் இருக்கிறதே 10 பேருக்கு தான் தெரியும். அதுல நான் வந்து பவர் யூசர். இன்னைக்கு வரைக்கும் நான் வந்து ஃபேஸ்புக் நோட்ஸ் நான் வந்து I've written some over 100 notes on Facebook. Notes is basically their blogging medium. So he had read all of that and he said, you write well. I know your reputation in college has reached my ears, and with that trust I'm hiring you. அப்படிதான் எனக்கு சொன்னாரு.
How did Girish see that in 2 days? Or like, what was that X factor do you think in his mind was to go through with this? Back when you had like no solid work experience.
The 2 people that I probably owe my getting a job at Freshworks is Ramesh and Shankar, right? So it was not a 2-day decision based on my conversation with Girish. It was 2 years of trust of Ramesh and 1 year of trust of Shankar with Girish, that he trusted their word in vouching for me. And it was a 4-year brand of myself that I had built in college that Ramesh and Shankar knew. Like I didn't know Shankar personally. I knew of Shankar Ganesh because I again knew him only virtually, right? So I knew him on Twitter. I had read his blog. Ramesh and I were actually friends. Like Ramesh, I knew him. Like we used to play Smackdown, Here Comes the Pain in his room next door. Like he used to bring his PS2 to college. I think another person in the room also had like a gaming PC, so we had emulators. So we used to play WWE a lot. So that's how I knew Ramesh, and I knew Ramesh decently well. So,
who's this Ramesh person, by the way?
Ramesh Ganapati. You should probably have him on the podcast next.
Okay, I'll check it.
So I'll tell you my way of repaying him. So he was employee number 35 when he joined. Like he was the first fresher to join fresh out of college and join Freshworks as employee number 35. He worked from 2012 to 2017. 2017, he was feeling really burnt out, so he quit Freshworks to take a break. Right? He has even written a post on Quora on what it's like to work at Fresh Desk back then. So his Quora post is probably collateral that I used to send people when we used to hire all of that. 2017, he took a break. In 2018, he wanted to join back, right? So we were always in touch with him. We also wanted him back and all that. So, and by 2017, I had moved to the HR team. So he was trying to see if he can get his old number back, employee number 35. Unfortunately, like every employment tenure is a new number. So if you leave now, you lose the number that you have, you will have to get a new number. But I still could work with one thing. I can play around with the order in which people join on whatever dates, right? So I told him, currently we had almost reached 2,000 employees. So we were in the 1900 series the week he was going to join. I told him I will try to get 1935 for him. So he left us employee number 0035 and he rejoined us 1935.
So yeah, your answer is very accurate, but it's not one of those overnight vetri kodi gettu stories that I was hoping for. It's also a lesson, right? So having that brand and reputation, it can go a long way. You didn't optimize for it at Sastra, as in my potential employer should know me for this and all. just happened that way. So that's a nice takeaway for people, I would like to think.
I mean, more than it just happened that way, I think that is the part of me which is truly authentic, and that is what is reflective of who I am.
If you were to like look at someone, say someone at Sastra, how would you like advise them to cultivate that authenticity?
You can't fake authenticity. So you can only be authentic to something you are passionate about. So first advice that I would give is find out what you like, find out what you enjoy doing, and do more of it. For me, it was wrestling. For me, it was cartoons. For me, it was video games. For me, it was culturals. Today, those are the places where I am a subject matter expert, where I can probably hold my own against anyone in that. என்ன போய் வந்து டான்ஸ் ஆடுன்னு சொன்னா ஐ காண்ட். I know I'm not good at it, right? என்ன போய் கிரிக்கெட் ஆடுனா I know I can't. I'm not good at it. So don't pick on a trend or try to do something because everyone is doing it. The easiest way for me to weed out people, right? So though I joined as part of the marketing team, I was unofficially HR from the day I joined. So we started campus placements and hiring out of campus. Literally, the first day I joined, I was called in G's cabin. G told me, "Vapa, Shastra polam. Let's start hiring." Because I was part of the marketing team, I was also part of the evaluation panel for hiring freshers into the marketing team, right? So the easiest way for me to identify whether somebody is authentic or not is, so a part of our screening form would ask you, have you done, like, if you have any links to showcase to us, like if you have a blog or if you have a YouTube page or whatever, anything that you have done creatively or you have created by yourself, share links of those. It's very easy for me to go and see when that blog was created. Now, July 2014, if I see the blog creation date as July 2014, I know that they've just created it for the sake of showing a blog link. That is not authentic at all. Like, that is immediate rejection for me. I wouldn't even bother. Yes, right? So you can't fake authenticity. There are people who, because they enjoy whatever they're doing, they have that content and they see. I didn't write all these blog posts in Facebook because I wanted to show it to some CEO and get interviewed and hired. I wrote it because I was feeling those at that point. Like, I write whenever I feel a lot. Like today, whenever some event happens or whenever something that really makes me emotional, I will write about it. Find out what it is that really gets you excited and focus on that. If you are good at something, that is enough. You don't have to be good at only one thing.
So I have a follow-up on that. Right? So I incidentally last weekend I pretty much spent interviewing some 10 to 12 college kids for the podcast. Actually, you had a comment there as well.
Nepotism.
Be careful, he is going to sit and edit the episode. Anyway, there is that. What I noticed was authenticity on the where people actually struggle to exhibit that is it's very random. So even in your case, cartoons, WWE, video games, they're all very non-linear. Entertainment is like the only bucket you can group them under there. But you were like really good at tying these down and creating a very good story out of it. So that's a real struggle for people is what I'm understanding.
You're asking me to give advice to college kids. Let me ask you this, right? So when that college kid was in school, why did they join whatever department they joined? Why did they join whatever college they joined? That is the first question you need to ask yourself, right? So a lot of people today do things very blindly without questioning anything, right? So a lot of people I know join Shastra because it assures 100% placement. I know a lot of people who join computer science because software is the is like a place where you can get jobs. Like IT companies will come and place you. I joined Shastra because I know it has a good cultural circuit and it has a good cultural team. I joined computer science because I'm not good at anything else. எனக்கு வந்து biology வராது. எனக்கு வந்து மெக்கானிக்கல் சிவிலுக்குலாம் எனக்கு தெம்பு கிடையாது. Like I don't have the physical strength to do civil engineering or mechanical engineering. EC, like, so for me, Vidyut Vihar, like triple EC, E&I, I like physics, I like maths, so it's probably one of those things. But I enjoyed computer science. So computer science was always going to be my first subject preference because I know I need to spend least effort on that. Like, it's something that I already knew that I can go and just while away time. Like, I went to college thinking that I will do design afterwards, right? So the 4 years of engineering was not because I wanted to do engineering. 4 years engineering I had to do because only then I can do my postgrad in a course that I wanted, right? a lot of people go to computer science because they want a job, right? But what job do they want may not necessarily be coding, may not necessarily even be related to computer science, right? I know a lot of people who moved from like random domains to random domains simply because they were never really interested in it in the first place, right? So I can still uh, tie back whatever I'm doing today to a little bit of what I learned in computer science, a little bit of what I learned in design, but it's not really that, right? So my core role is not writing code. My core role is not making videos. My core role is in identifying and spotting talent, which was the full-time role that I played both in school and college when I was putting teams together to go to cultural events and win, right? So that is the core skill that I have that got me a job in the first place. The authenticity comes when you know you like doing something and you do more of it repeatedly. So if you are a person who likes playing sports, right? So that automatically puts you as a team player because you need to be a good team player to be good at any sport, right? So uh, a good interviewer will be able to find all of these based on conversations with anyone. So the thing is, don't go blindly into a journey. Figure out things and go slightly one level down into the details to find what you want and work towards that, right? So I'll ask you, right? So what made you a marketer? Like, why did you want to become a marketer? Did you become a marketer or did marketing happen to you?
Oh, yeah, I was not ready. No, I think in my case, back in college, I figured I was good with the writing, right? And I wanted to pick something in journalism. I cleared all these colleges, Loyola and DG and all, right after 12th. But folks at home, they weren't comfortable, like, one, letting me study like the media engineering, media journalism. Number two, BCom sounded like a safer option. But I wanted to figure out if I'd be good at it. So final year, I just went to some random media house in Chennai. It's called News Today. And I heard that they actually closed it down during the pandemic, which was super sad. And you must know this K. Balakumar on Twitter, right? So he was like my first ever boss. My takeaway was writing is what I am good at. So I searched for writing jobs and all random keywords. So content writing kept coming up. So I applied for content writing marketeer.
So the effort that you put in identifying what you're good at and then figuring out roles that require that skill is the effort that everyone needs to put. யாரும் வந்து வெத்தலை பாக்கு கொடுத்து உனக்கு வேலை கொடுக்க போறது இல்லை. And you can't fake working in a place where you don't have the core skills that required for it. There are a lot of people who are fluff. ரொம்ப பேசினாலும் எனக்கு வந்து பிடிக்காது ஆளுங்க. There are very few people who talk and walk. நிறைய பேர்கிட்ட வந்து like I know a lot of people who fit in one bucket and who will fit in another bucket, right? So the people who can't, constantly talk a lot are the people who have a lot of fluff. They don't really have stuff. There are people who have stuff but never talk at all, and there are people who do both, and there are people who do neither. The one kind of people that I particularly don't get along with and don't like are the people who over index on fluff and not enough fun stuff. பண்ணறத பத்தி பேசுறதுல பிரச்சனையே இல்லை. Like Sanjeev NC is a good example, right? He does a lot, he talks about whatever he does a lot. That is acceptable. There are people who do 10 but will talk like they did 100.
Now I feel like this is getting very personal, buddy.
No offense to you. I'm not. This is not an attack on you. Don't. For record, I think you are doing a good job and you fall in the NC category of people.
Oh, nice. I like this NC category of people.
I don't know. You don't know Shankar Ganesh well enough, but I've introduced you as the Shankar Ganesh of this gen to a lot of people.
Wow. Shankar Ganesh is somebody I really look up to, and I'm very flattered by that feedback. I don't know. I don't really relate to. He's good with product management.
No, it's not. See, that's the thing, right? So again, now you're going into role, what he does, all of that, right? Being proactive and doing things because you want to do it is a very innate Shankar Ganesh skill. Nobody I know will want to write a promo to Sriram Krishnan and sell.
Hey, Sriram. On the off chance that you're listening to this,
I'm a big fan of Sriram. He still doesn't follow me on Twitter, but he asked a question to you about me. I was super thrilled seeing that.
Yeah, we should probably get to that. Why don't we do that? So what's a WWE feud? For folks listening, this is the context, right? So when I put up on Twitter that I was having body on the podcast, Sriram, like right away he replied saying, ask him which WWE bookings he didn't like, basically, what he would have done differently.
What I would change?
Mm.
Honestly, I mean, he specifically said 90s also. So the early 90s feuds that I didn't enjoy or didn't like probably was the 1999 period, right? So the after Shawn Michaels retired and after Triple H took over and was building up to be the next big heel, there was a missed opportunity in that Survivor Series that never happened. Survivor Series 99 was supposed to have Triple H versus Stone Cold versus Rock. That the three of them never faced each other in the same ring. That never happened. And because of which WrestleMania 2000 was main evented as a fatal four-way match with Triple H, Rock, Big Show, and Mankind. I think the whole end of 99, like the feud between Triple H, Rock, and Austin could have been done better and not ended up as a fatal four-way in WrestleMania 2000. Like that's probably the low light of the 90s that I never really enjoyed. 1997 was peak year for me. Everything I liked happened. Like Shawn Michaels was on top. DX happened. Undertaker, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels had a series of good matches with each other. Austin, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels also had a series of matches with each other. So 97, 98 were like two kick-ass years. 96, 95 and all, I didn't watch as much. Like I started watching in 95, 96 only. Like before 96 is a style of wrestling that I don't enjoy. Like the whole big man bodybuilder wrestler is not my kind of wrestling.
Right. Yeah. I hope Sriram gets it in, and all of these references, it's like, I mean, 98, 99, I was like 1 year old. So
he's only 7 years older than me. So I'm assuming he grew up watching a few years before me. He would have at least watched the Hulk Hogan era, which I didn't. I started with Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. So Hulk Hogan was already almost retiring age by the time I started.
Yeah. So there is that one. I should go and ask him now. What is something that you would have changed? And he has like a ton of WWE stories. I think that's worth mentioning here, right? So it ties down to our whole discussion around authenticity as well. For about 10 to 15 years of my life, people have shit on me for following wrestling like as much as I did. 15 years, day one, some random A16Z partner who is talking with the likes of Elon Musk, Girish, and our only connection is WWE. Or you for that matter. Like someone in Freshworks, there's like 2,000 people there, 50 HRs, about 49 of whom hate me because I would have probably sent like 30 applications between college and work itself. But our connection is basically WWE. I mean, it literally started off with the most random cold email. Hey, do you want to partner with me? I'm trying to take down this guy. But it's nice. So like anyone, like I don't know, I'm not old enough to give advice and all. But if you're shying away from something that you really like, or shying away from talking about it, for the record, a lot of good things, especially around podcasting and guests like you, that has worked out well for me more than anything else is just being authentic and talking about what I'm genuinely interested in. How old do I sound like? 60, 65?
You don't have to be old to give advice.
Okay.
I believe that you can learn from anyone. So you can learn from babies, you can learn from adults, you can learn from grandfathers, grandmothers. So there is no age limit to give advice, both lower and upper.
That's nice. Switching to some serious gears. So there are a couple of very Freshworks centric questions that people had. One is, I don't want to name this person because Sanjeevan, I don't know how he'll feel about it. Where do you see yourself in a few years' time? And I think you also mentioned that eventually, like writing a book or doing something related to franchisee is a big goal that you want to tick off, right? So let's like put that aside. I don't want to like give that as a way for you to give an easy answer or something. Like between Freshworks and that phase, do you feel like you would ever like want to try out something else, go somewhere else?
I've grown up listening to Girish speak his wisdom. One of the things that I strongly believe in is playing to your strengths. I am not good with business. I'm not a business person, right? I'm a bad customer. Like for you to be a good salesperson, for you to be able to sell effectively, you need to be a good buyer, right? I don't buy. Like I'm the worst customer for anyone. Business side of things is not something I will say is my strength. People side of things is my natural strength and natural habitat. Like in terms of skills, I'm very good at is navigating people. Like I can read people well, I can understand people well, I can empathize with people well. So HR is a domain that is probably the best place for me right now. The other skill or the other broad area that I'd probably be good at, two roles are there, right? So I'm a storyteller. Like I have that innate storytelling ability. Like connecting the thread is not coincidence, right? So I find coincidences to connect, and then I narrate it in a way where it is appealing and it's a story. I grew up watching movies. I grew up watching cartoons. So at some point when I want to make my own movie, that screenplay, script writing needs to be there. So creative writing is something that I'm good at. So marketing is probably the role that I was in before. That I again, marketing is a I mean, no offense to marketers, but marketing is, to me, marketing is basically lying to someone, right? So you basically you put a lot of fluff and not enough stuff, which is why I don't identify as much as a marketer as I do in other roles. Other role that I would enjoy being in, or I at some point I definitely want to be in my career is a implementation or a solutions partner, right? So I like solving problems, working with limitations or what we have to get the best solution forward, right? So today in the world of SaaS, right? So SaaS products are not custom made. So SaaS products are built to solve a basic problem. The bigger and more complex your company's needs are or your problems are, the more advanced implementation you will need and the more custom integrations you will need, right? So that is an area that I think I'm very good at because I can understand, articulate, and abstract and solve problems.
Right. So follow up to that is, I think we got the role part. If not for Freshworks, where?
WWE or Disney, two of the companies that I've always wanted to work in. Again, in marketing or technology roles, not as a active competitor. I don't have the body for that. Sorry.
Yeah, I think you should be a WWE booker and I should do commentary or something. Just take me along. Referral.
Sure.
Nice. So that was one. And a lot of people, I don't want to, I don't know, step into your personal life or other, but at the same time, I also don't want to let down about 10 folks who asked when you're getting married.
I honestly don't know. It'll happen when it happens. Like it is not an event that you can, pinpoint and plan. It'll happen when it happens. It can be today, it can be tomorrow, it can be 10 years from now. I don't know. I honestly don't know.
That's the least convincing answer that he gave the entire 70, 80 minutes we spoke, but it is what it is. So before we jump into something called the random deck, is there anything that you want to discuss?
I can tell you a little bit more about WWE and my career, right? So
please do. Yes, that's one thing that we wanted to.
The threads that connect. Today, Freshworks recently went public, so we are a publicly listed company in the Nasdaq. The whole Triple H NXT, right? So today, I see myself as Triple H building NXT, right? So for me, building talent, like taking people fresh, like Full Sail University, NXT. I'm not talking about NXT as the brand, like NXT as a learning school. Like it was a tie-up with a college called Full Sail University, where they took people who were studying, they put them through this whole training, rigorous boot camp of sorts. They groomed them into becoming stars, right? So the older WWE model relied on hiring people who are already stars. You had 2-3 big brands, like you had WWF, you had WCW, you had ECW, then you had New Japan. Basically, you had like one brand in every country. Hulk Hogan went to WCW and became famous. Rather, WCW poached Hogan from WWE because he was already a star in WWE. Bill Goldberg joined WWE because all the other promotions had shut down. He was already a star when he joined. Right today, Seth Rollins is not a star; he was made a star. And honestly, it predates that. Right, so even before NXT, WWE had this concept called Ohio Valley Wrestling (OVW). So OVW was their initial training school. So the first batch of OVW are probably the four most famous names in wrestling today, and probably of this generation. Honestly, if you ask me the most popular names in wrestling, Stone Cold, Rock, Hogan will be top 3.
CM Punk.
But CM Punk, compared to those 3 today, no offense to him, okay? Today, again, it's a virtue of where in time we are, right? So we've seen and we've crossed Hogan's Peak, we've seen and crossed Austin's Peak, we've seen and crossed Rock's peak in wrestling. We are still seeing his peak in Hollywood today. So today, Rock is probably the most famous person from wrestling. I can't say in wrestling. He's from wrestling. He's not in wrestling anymore, right? But the next generation of superstars, the first initial batch of OVW had Brock Lesnar, had Batista, had John Cena, had Randy Orton. So like these four were no one to begin with, right? So probably Randy Orton had like a heritage of, he came from a heritage of wrestling, right? His father was a wrestler, his uncle was a wrestler, his grandfather was a wrestler, all of that. He grew up with wrestling. John Cena had no connection to wrestling. He was a fan. Brock Lesnar had no connection to wrestling. He was an athlete. He did athletics and wrestling in college. Batista was nothing. Batista was actually over the age limit. Like Batista was older than Triple H by a few months. Okay, so these four people were groomed to become stars, and today they are they are four big names in wrestling today. And if you give enough time, like if you take 10 years from now, 20 years from now, I'm sure these four will eclipse Austin, Hogan, Rock. Probably like few years from then, the next set of people like Punk, Bryan will eclipse these people, right? So because with each new generation, they eclipse the previous generation. I mean, it's the same everywhere. Like your older generations will eventually be surpassed by somebody new, right? Like Shivaji MGR got replaced by Rajni Kamal. Today, Rajni is still big, right? After some point, you will have Vijay Ajit that will come and go, right? Like then you'll have Dhanush, Simbu, like it is a cycle, right?
No, snuck in Simbu in the same sentences. Rajni, Kamal, Dhanush, like we wouldn't notice.
Too much memes from Sanjeev.
Cool. So I'm gonna run you down through something I call random deck. What is an absolute non-negotiable for you in life?
Authenticity. I can't deal with fake people. Like too much fluff, less stuff, etc. Sorry.
What is your favorite word in English?
There's no particular word as such. I have a favorite quote or I have a favorite line. So I'll probably take a word from that. My favorite word in English is practice. The quote reads, every day there is someone practicing and the day you meet him, he will win. It's a reminder that you don't stop if you're good at something. You have to keep practicing. Every day you have to keep practicing. So in Africa, a deer wakes up knowing that it has to outrun or it has to outrun the slowest deer because otherwise it will get eaten by the lion. The lion wakes up, it needs to outrun the slowest deer because otherwise it will die of hunger, right? So the moral of the story is it doesn't matter if you're a deer, it doesn't matter if you're a lion. When the sun comes up, you better get running, right? That is the mantra for me. Like you never stop, right? So you have to keep doing what you're doing. And so practice is my favorite word.
What is a book that you have gifted the most or you'd like to gift most?
I have gifted this book to 2-3 people. So that's probably the most, but I would definitely like to give this book to a lot of people. It's called Ikigai. It's the art of, it's a Japanese thing. Google it. It's a very nice book.
Right.
Like it talks about how you overlap your skills, your career, and your passion.
So, who has been the biggest inspiration for you that you have never really admitted to?
Honestly, if you ask me, a lot of my inspiration comes from fictional characters. So, all my teachers are big inspirations. I attribute a lot of what I learned from my school, my college, all of that. I would say the least that I attribute my inspiration to is probably my family. And I think growing up in my family has something, right? So a part of me is who I am because I grew up in my family. So that's probably the least attributed way. So you can take my family as the inspiration source that I've never attributed to before.
Who's someone in your network that you would like to nominate for the Takeaway Club podcast?
I already said I'll get you to have a podcast with Girish at some point. So I would like to nominate Shankar Ganesh to be on this podcast with you. I'll ask him and I'll probably set you guys up.
Okay, actually, funny you should mention that. I forgot that it ever happened, but I think when I was less than 10 episodes in or something, like first 3 months of starting, I DM'd Shankar Ganesh asking him to be here. And his response was, I don't think I have done anything to be on a podcast. Sorry. That's like
typical Shankar Ganesh.
Cool. The last one. So, what is something that I can do for you. So, like I've told this off the record also, and I probably mentioned it on the record also. Like a lot of things I didn't think some random Twitter cartoon avatar would have like would basically enrich my life over the last some 12 months or so, right? So that's some unreal impact that way. So how can I
Find someone like you and get them a job somewhere.
I'll make a note of it. So buddy, thank you so much for getting on the
Thank you so much for this. I don't even know how long we took, but enjoyed being here and talking.
Yes, absolutely. I think there is literally like two people in my network at the moment, like in this phase of my life where I can spend like hours speaking about WWE. So which means like 50% of my audience I have covered. So this is like also a subtle, sorry, not so subtle, open invitation to Sriram also, which the three of us should do this together. I don't know. I feel like an imposter amongst you guys. Like you're way more immersed in the WWE culture than I could be. But
We are three different generations.
yeah, that's the beauty of Vince McMahon. Thank you for a conversation that I basically never thought I would have. It was super fun. Let's catch up in person soon. So we have
Definitely.
come halfway. So cartoon avatar now I know that this is a functioning human. Next up to see that this human is for real, Andre. Let's do that. We'll have like triple threat 2 versus 1 with Sanjeev soon at his home. Hey there, so that wraps up a conversation that I absolutely enjoyed recording, and I hope you did too. If that's the case, kindly consider leaving a rating on Apple Podcasts, which will help the Takeaway Club find new like minded people like you. Also, consider subscribing to the Takeaway Club. So, we are at the Takeaway dot club as well as the Takeaway Club.substack.com. Just hit the subscribe button, it's free, and you'll get all the latest episodes and other articles that I'm working on straight to your inbox. Have a great day ahead. Thank you once again for tuning in to the Takeaway Club.